Three. All right, my name is Bruno Baltazar. We are here for another episode of not just really interview, but more of a conversation. And we have Joe Worf joining us with us today. Joey, do you mind giving us a little bit of more information about yourself and what do you do exactly?
Absolutely. So I am a tactical performance coach. I work with a company called Tactalyse. Um, we're a remote country, so we work all over the world. We've got 30 something coaches. But yeah, the reason I'm on this podcast is because I work with three professional Houston Dynamo players, and I have done for a while. So I do their tactical analysis and I coach them how to improve their decision making and game understanding. Um, but prior to this job, I used to be a football coach with Arsenal in the youth teams. And after that, I became just more of a technical analyst for years and years. And I've done management, I've done sports psychology is kind of what I went into in my later 20s. And I brought it all together. And this is the role I'm doing now with
Mm.
Tactalyze, trying to improve players and basically make them smarter and so that they can, no matter what team they go to, no matter what situation they're in, is that they're better set having worked with me than they were before.
But what are some of the changes that you have seen in the last years of the game and the way it's evolving? Because I think that I want to say 20 years, 15 years ago, the mental aspect of the game was really a taboo subject. Nobody really wanted to talk about it. And then all of a sudden, it became quite popular, as well as working out, players working out itself and everything. I think it was more technical back then, and now it's becoming more the game is physical, faster, but also like it's very important the mental aspect of it. But can you tell me like a little bit more about like the differences between when you were at the youth with Arsenal and now that you are working with these professional players?
Yeah. So, in my when I first started in football, I was very much on the field and doing the classic type of coaching, just repeating drills and um, putting players into situations where they try and figure stuff out themselves, which is good. But something I always struggled with players was explaining to them why they're going to need to know this on the pitch, is recreating those game situations. Um, so when I came across Tactalyze, it that's what it focuses on, is making it clear to players, okay, this is why you need to train this aspect, because here's what happens when you don't do it, or here's what happens when you do it. Um, so yeah, the difference is now that I'm working with these pro players, first of all, is they understand things a lot quicker and better. Is that you can run through these situations. It's more like a 50-50 discussion. It's never me just talking at them or anything, so they can comprehend it a lot better, which is easier, of course. But yeah, just in general, I think football is moving more towards this individual development, um, individual tactics mode. It's kind of the new trend, I would say, and it's definitely going to become the thing within the next 5 to 10 years. Like data has been the big boom in the last 15 or so years, 10, 15 years. This is the next one. I'm very confident in that.
So, like you said, you work remotely and everything. I find it interesting, and I'm sure like a lot of the things boomed more when the coronavirus happened and everything was on Zoom, just like we're doing it right now as well. But tell me a little bit of like how does that work specifically when you are doing it remotely with these players?
Well, I mean, it's one of the strengths really of the job, is that you are meeting players in the comfort of their home. You're not dragging them out. It's not an imposition. We just meet for an hour. I've already done all the analysis. Everything's prepared. We just meet for an hour. We discuss the clips in the specific areas that they want to work on.
Mm.
So they feel more comfortable. Sometimes they're even in their beds or in their sofas, in their pajamas, whatever. It's casual, it's flexible, and it's an immediate breaking down of any sort of boundaries you might have with a player. It's a lot more human to human. You get to know them, they feel comfortable, and then when a person feels comfortable, generally they learn more because they're more motivated. It just takes down those defenses. So yeah, for me, the remote aspect is a strength, but it also allows me to live a more free life. I don't have to be tied to any one place, for instance.
So let me throw you a scenario, okay? And obviously this is very broad scenario, not really like data driven per se. But let me say I'm a left back, right? I play for the Dynamo. Let me say that I looked at the data and I mean I realized what I was doing in the game and I struggle on the 50-50 balls and I realized that I lost some of those battles. Let's say that I'm struggling a little bit with the speed and I want to help a little bit more the wingers. So, based on that information that I'm telling you, that this is what I'm already identified that I'm struggling with. In the last game, I also struggled with, and I'm a little bit mentally down because I think that I let my team down a little bit. So, how would you go about it specifically on a session to help out the player?
Yeah, it's a good question. So with let's say the physical side, um, obviously there's not much I can do about that except tell them situations where they should put more effort in or they can maybe rest in a situation. But if they're struggling with aerial duels or whatever, generally they might be able to identify that they're struggling with aerial duels, but they won't know why. Like they could watch 500 clips and be like, why am I not winning these duels? I just can't understand it. We can see, or well, me and the Tactalyse coaches, we can see exactly the small details that have gone wrong. So often it might be something way before even the duel has begun that is the reason you don't win the duel. And we've watched thousands upon thousands of games and clips to know, the general reasons why these mistakes happen and why the good things happen as well. Of course, you got to look at the good things. So yeah, I would show the player these small details, which maybe look on the first session together. We would look at, let's say we're looking at ground jewels. We might just look at the breaking into these ground jewels, or maybe even the head checks before the ground jewels. Is like, does the player even know what situation they're about to go into? And then you look at some good clips and bad clips, and that's the moment where it kind of like clicks for them. Um, and when it comes to the confidence side, it's a big part of what it's sort of a yeah, it's a benefit of what we do is that we simplify the games for players so that it gives them something small to concentrate on. Generally in football, uh, sort of how players are perceived is very much related to goals and assists and clean sheets and results, right? But obviously, there's so much more in a game than that. There's so many tiny moments, so it gives something players these small things to concentrate on, and that's where the confidence begins to build. It's like they might not score a goal in that game, but we can look at it and go, oh, look how many times your body shape was correct, or this that, and then making improvements every week, and then eventually the confidence seeps into the whole game, and then they're just feeling good. Yeah, it just simplifies it for them, and that's where confidence comes from.
How much of this individual break down with you, for example, and then of course players can practice in their own time, obviously, and but how much of that also can translate into, like you were saying, those sessions back then when you used to coach, and all you're doing is just trying to know the reason why we're practicing in game situations, but then how much of that specific development of the players, specific in terms of like the positioning and all that you're saying on the aerial duels. How much does that translate with a conversation where they feel like they actually can go to their head coach or their assistant coach and then work on those specifically drills?
Mm, yeah. It's an interesting one, of course, because we have to be very careful that we're not saying things that are at odds with the coaches. So it's a very important thing to always ask the players, okay, what are your instructions? What is the team tactics? And then we try and fit around that. But yeah, of course, it empowers the players. It makes them feel like they have more of a voice and they're smarter. They can go to the coach and see, oh, I've identified these areas of problems why I'm not winning aerial duels. Can we just, can you watch me and make sure I'm doing them okay in the games and the trainings? Yeah, hopefully they have that relationship with the coach. I can't say if they do or not. I know that the players within Houston, they have that relationship with the coaches, so that's nice. They can talk to them and they can have that discourse. I mean, I've even met some of the Houston coaches, so yeah, it's
Ultimately, it
it's
takes a
an
village.
interesting.
It takes a
Yeah,
village.
exactly.
It's so now branching a little bit exactly. You're talking about Houston, and I mean I'm originally from Portugal, and obviously we can tell that you're not, American. But watching the game and growing the game overseas, and then now you're observing the pace of the game, and I think the tactical. aspect of the game is a lot less developed, if I'm being nice, compared to it's a lot more disorganization. The game gets very broken, usually around the 60th minute, and that's where you see a lot of dangerous situations occurring in, usually on an MLS game. And I
Yeah.
think that has to do a lot with the tactical aspect of the game and the players not really following through it.
Mhm.
And it becomes just basically freestyle soccer, where it's just a run and gun type of fast-paced game, which can be fun to watch for a general fan. But I guess if you are connected to soccer, it's getting very frustrating to watch some of these games. So, how much difference do you see in what do you think can contribute to the development of the game? I mean, obviously, people like you are doing so, but what differences do you see?
It obviously takes people within the system to be open to these things. So I believe it was Griffin Dorsey that came to me first. You know, he's a very open-minded player, and he brought Eric with him, two very open-minded people, and that's what you want. That's where change comes from. I think at the moment, the coaches that we have in America that are operating in America, they say the struggle is just that people don't they're not quite there yet. Like some of these younger the academies and the clubs and the organizations, they're just not they just don't know what it is yet. And it can be quite a hard thing to explain. Even to you, it can be quite hard to explain. If I showed you it makes sense, but to get in the door with these people can be difficult. So it takes people to be open-minded, and then to convince them from there. But yeah, I think it's I would say the American game is still a little bit behind Europe in terms of all these new revolutions, but it'll get there for sure. And the more that we can help and other people doing tactical work can help, then like the infrastructure's there, the players are there, the abilities there, the athleticism is certainly there in America. I think 20 years of tactical work, bringing them up to the rest of the world's level, there's no reason why they couldn't be like one of the teams competing for the World Cup, in my opinion. But yeah, it does take some people, some special people to just be more open and try these new things.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like the system over here, like I don't see a reason. I see the reason why this country excels in basketball. I see why it excels in all the other sports. But when it comes to soccer, I believe that there is sadly, and I'm going to say it because I know the world, but there's a lot of fans that become coaches.
Mm-hmm.
They become
Mm-hmm.
coaches in the snap of a finger because they can just be teachers and they can get their way into it. But then the players are not developing. It just becomes more scrimmages ongoing. And that you at the beginning of the season, at the end of the season, you definitely have a better team because the players know everybody and each other because they've practiced and they've played with each other. But the technical of the development of their tactical awareness and specific skills lacks. So then you get the other spectrum where you get a little bit of a better quality in coaching, but for those kids, a lot of those, unfortunately, they have to pay with the clubs, and that becomes like a money grabber situation in terms of the development and I think that it kills a lot of the talent because if there's a lot of players with talent, but they just don't have the affordability. Their parents they cannot drive them or they cannot pay those fees, and then they get a little bit they lose the passion for the game or they lose the passion to play the game. They continue to watch it, but they won't really feel the need to really play because they don't see that they are developing. And one of the biggest complaints that I get now from younger players is that we actually want to get better.
Mm-hmm.
So please give us the ethical stuff and like don't let us scrimmage as much because we want to see there's a line of progress rather than a continuous line of just staying the same. So I think that's what you're saying is important. It's just changing the mindsets. Data is important in the game. That's the only way you can really get detail and see what it is. Scouting, recording, obviously watching your cell phone tape, see what you're doing, body positioning, things like that. All those things matter. But I think that having the right people to do things that maybe people didn't thought it was needed in the game, I think that that's what's taking the game to another level, specifically in this country, because there's definitely the numbers. People practice, people play it. So it's been frustrating being over here because we or they should be a lot better
Mm-hmm.
than what it is. But I think that, maybe in the next 10 years, we see a different trajectory as these younger players get developed by different people and people with
Absolutely.
a little bit bigger knowledge of the game. So, piggybacking from that, man. What ages do you work with? Because I'm sure you work with guys that might be in high school, guys that maybe can be even 12 years old if their parents are really involved in their game. So how much of
True.
the difference it is between those different age groups when you're the comparison of dealing with a 12-year-old, for example, versus dealing with a 30-year-old pro player?
Yeah, I mean, it's wildly different, of course. Yeah, I think the youngest I've worked with in this role has been 13, and
Mhm.
the oldest is Eric Sviatchenko, so 33.
Mhm.
Um, so of course it's completely different with the younger players. It's very much it's almost more educational. You have to be almost like a teacher and a guide to them. You have to poke them and sort of give them the agency they need, but you also need to be able to step in and kind of uh, not discipline, but you have to have some authority. Whereas when it comes to someone that's my age or just a few years younger, it's very much like this conversation. It's 50-50 where we're just spitballing. It's like, how can we improve your career? Let's talk football. Um, but then ultimately I have to always go away and reflect on what the player needs. I need to figure out, okay, how do they learn? How do they take this information in? Sometimes you have to notice, sometimes players are just slow to take up things, and you need to be, okay, why is this? And so it's a lot more reflection with the younger players. You can kind of just be like teacher mode, keep on doing it, try and motivate them, try and help them to learn, be on top of it. With the older players, you really need to deeply understand them, and which is a beautiful thing. It's what I love about the job is really understanding people and finding out what makes them tick. And ultimately, a few sessions in or a few months in, you really start to see the results. And yeah, there's no better feeling.
Definitely. Do you mind sharing me with like some of the names for like data apps that you guys use and things of that nature? Because I think I've always been fascinated with this technological aspect of it, and I know that it's some of these apps can be tedious to plug it into. But do you mind like sharing some of the software by any chance?
I mean, sure, we don't
Because
like.
there's so many options out there, but I feel like when I talk to American coaches,
Mhm.
most of them they have no clue about it.
No, well, honestly, we're not a data-led company by any means. We're a human. Like, yeah, so we use our coding. We use Longer Match, which is simple. It's a coding tool.
Hmm.
So I put a game into that. We have a panel, and you just click, 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 click things. Takes it out of the game. Then you got all the clips. Bam. We use Y Scout obviously to get games, and that has data on it. We use data loosely to identify some areas which they can improve in, but
Hmm.
ultimately, data will never identify why there is a problem.
It's the
Data will
visuals.
just say, yeah, there's a problem. So
Yeah.
honestly, there's nothing. It sounds old school, but it's a new school way of old school. Is the eye test, the classic eye test.
Hmm.
Like I said, we watch thousands of games. Now I'm trained and able to just spot by just watching a player what the problems are.
Hmm.
Um, and someone might say, "Oh, well, you can't tell that from one game." True, but I can see what patterns are likely to continue. Well, yeah, what is a pattern basically versus what is just like a one-off mistake. Generally, if someone's not checking their shoulders enough or someone is always in the wrong body shape, yeah, it's going to continue every game. Like, why would they only do that wrong once? Yeah, if someone just slips over, that's fine. That's a one-off mistake. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't really use that much data. We don't use that much data. And I know that's kind of sometimes shocks people a little bit, but it's just not what is necessary in helping these players take the next step.
So what is your recommendation? We talked a little bit about the coaching side of it, right? The partnership or relationship, or sometimes, like not trying to create like a difference in the locker room or so. But like for those who are watching, they're actually coaches and they can be on any level, like I said, high school, and maybe they're just trying to help out specific players or whatever, and they might be interested in checking you guys out. But like what type of like recommendation would you give, for example, if and I know this is a little bit different because you've been saying about working with the individuals, but let's say that I'm actually struggling with my team. And
Mhm.
maybe, because you were also a manager before, like, and I plug that and I say, hey, man, I got some videos over here, but like maybe I'm missing the point here of what exactly is going on. So like, what kind of relationship do you have, or what kind of like situation, if you ever experienced that before?
When if someone comes to me and asks them to help their team,
Yes, more than
yeah,
just
so we
individual
have
players.
we have expertise in that as well. So we have yeah, a few different types of analysis. Our main thing is the individual analysis, but we also work on team constellations. So that's more. So you got all the individual parts, right? And
Mhm.
then the constellation is how these individual parts fit together. So you
Mhm.
break it down first of all to the individual. Let's say you got the fullbacks and the centre back. Everyone's got their own role, but unless they're all performing it in harmony, then even if one person's doing everything correctly, it's going to go wrong. So yeah, it's about understanding the individuals, but then bringing them back together and be like, okay, you all have to be moving forward at this time, or you have to be squeezing at this time, whatever it is. Um, so what I'd recommend to coaches that receive those types of questions are to break down the game themselves, take situation by situation. I think the problem is a lot of people just try and look at a whole game and try and, it's too much. It's a football game is like a massive puzzle. Just take one piece of the puzzle, study it, look at it, and go, okay, what is really going wrong here? Is this Is this a team issue? Is this individual issue? Just watch it over and over. And the more you get to know like one situation, is the next time you see it as a coach, you're going to see it instantly. And then it gets quick. And then you can, within a game or when you're watching from the sideline, you can be like, that's going wrong. Let's get a message onto this player or this player.
Mhm.
So breaking down the game, simplify it for yourself, simplify it for the players, and then it's just easier for everyone. We overcomplicate things.
Yeah,
Like
I think some of the game is getting it's simple things that sometimes make the best things. Um,
exactly.
so before we go, is there anything that you think it will be pertinent for us to talk about?
Um, well, I mean, we can talk more about Houston this season. It's going to be
Yeah,
an
let's talk
interesting.
about it actually. It's actually it looks like a work in progress right now. They clear up a lot of the salary cap right now and a lot of the games. They just signed another player today. The fans are impatient as always. I think it's because the previous 5, 6 years all the way till last year they were very choppy, and the fan base got a little bit associated with the team as well. And but I mean, it's definitely I think that people need to be patient. That's my understanding of it, but people are not being patient.
Yeah.
I think this draw, they just draw against Columbus. I thought it was actually a pretty good result. I think they had leaked too much defensively in some of the previous games. There was a big gap between both zones, both areas, in my understanding. And then they really tried to compact a little bit more, especially on the road against Columbus. And they were able to really get that point away, which was much needed, especially after those big defeats from all the previous matches. And I can only imagine if Messi was playing on that Inter Miami
Mm.
game, what would have been. But
Yeah.
that's from my outside perspective of it. So what from your inside perspective of it, what do you see? What do you think? Maybe some hope for the fans, maybe some truth, maybe. And I think that a lot of it is like people. I see that the Dynamo is progressing a lot in being very open-minded to using data analysis to bring outsiders now, and to even use you guys indirectly in many ways, but have the players to buy into thinking outside the box and using new tools and strategies to progress, not just individually, but obviously collectively at the end of the day. But from an inside perspective of it, what do you see differently?
Yeah. No, I think yeah, definitely that it's a more forward-thinking club. It's a very pragmatic club. I know Ben Olsen and the rest of the coaching team are very pragmatic, but they're also willing to try things from my understanding anyway. But I think yeah, definitely I think it's going to be a tough start to the season. So many new players, and the spines got pretty ripped apart. Mikel and Herrera and whoever else is left. But I do know like the how hard they're working and how good some of the players are within it. And I know the team is very close knit. So I'm hoping these new players come in and they just add to it rather than they're no sort of problem or anything. But yeah, definitely in the next few games, it's going to be one of these where it's getting results, I think the Columbus result was great. It's one of the better teams in the league. So I think that's away from home. That's a great result too. And I know that, whether I can say this or not, but the players were happy. Especially the defenders like Griffin and Femi. They were very happy after the session, after the game, and said, that's what we wanted. That's something to build on. Let's go. And you've got to remember that from a fan perspective, sure you want to win, but you've also got to remember that the confidence that just going from a 4-1 loss to a nil-nil draw can give to players is can never be underappreciated. So definitely would give them support and appreciate the work that went in to get the 0-0. Know how much work is going in behind the scenes. But yeah, I really like the team. They've become my team, Houston.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, why not? And obviously I've got potentially 3 of the 4 defenders in the team that I'm working with. Maybe I'll get the Franco Escobar or something. And I can have the whole team. But yeah, so hopefully there'll be a lot of clean sheets, not many yellow cards from them. So yeah, it'd be interesting. I think everyone should maybe just watch those 3 players and see if there's anything that they're doing specifically. Just because it's quite interesting. I think you're when you start twisting your mind to just watching individuals, is football, it becomes, it's a whole new world of football. To me it's more interesting. I love watching an individual player and seeing like what are they thinking in that moment, why have they made this decision. So yeah, but I think it should be a nice season for Houston, but a tough start.
Can you tell me a little bit when it works, when you specifically working with these, and just from the fans were like, oh, it's frustrating defensively. We gave 4 to Miami, we gave 2 to Dallas, with Dallas coming back, and like those daunting days between matches in practice, and having these sessions, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing your value, knowing your skills individually and collectively, but then looking at the scoreboard as being the only thing that apparently matters to everybody else, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit of it? Because you said that your background was also a little bit on the mental aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I did a sports psychology master. But yeah, no, they. I remember after the 4-1 defeat, how excited, not excited, but how eager they were to come in and do the session with me. They're like, I need to see why this is.
Mhm.
Um, I need, like, yeah, let's break down this game. Let's learn from it. So, as much as they're disappointed, as much as the fans, if not more, is
Mhm.
that they have to instantly switch to a mindset. They're like, okay, this has happened. What can I do? What can I do to improve? So yeah, that's the only sort of solace I can provide to fans, is that the players take it super seriously and they try and learn the lessons. Nothing's, it's never always going to go correctly, but the thing is the players don't take that lightly.
Mhm.
And maybe that's what fans don't know, is that players don't just go home and go forget about the loss. They take it with them, they take it
Mhm.
inside. But the players I work with, at least, have learned to channel that to positive things, to learning, to growing. And hopefully I help a lot with that, but it's also within them. They're those types of people, Griffin, Eric, Femi, they're all those types of people that they just want to grow. They want to be the best they can be. So yeah, support them and give them that sort of credit. They try
Yeah,
and
I definitely seen some of their evolution, especially from the last year, because there's also an adjustment too, some of those players, like for example, Eric coming from overseas, and playing on the Europa League before and all that, and then next thing you know is definitely a little bit of, well, definitely a bigger change on the pace of the game and everything else. So, and he has quickly became a fan favorite as well as Dorsey as well.
yeah,
So some of the, I mean, they and just the way they give everything they got in every
yeah.
game, it's very respectful. There's
Oh,
one thing nobody can talk about them is like they give 120% in every ball if they need to.
absolutely. And yeah, I can definitely say behind the scenes, they're probably the loveliest people I've ever met in football, like all 3 of them. So yeah, I don't know, something in the water in Houston, but they're good people as well, which is, I can't say that for every footballer by any means. So
Definitely.
yeah,
I think
they're
that has
good
to
guys.
do with Ben Olsen also trying to get a specific type of player as well. Leadership,
Yeah,
especially veterans with good quality of leaderships in the locker room. If you have a healthy locker room, you have a healthy team. That's usually a trajectory of it because there's a lot of players that can become cancers. in the locker
Mhm.
rooms, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Is there anything else before we go that you want to say? Besides, once again, give us all your information so people can really reach you.
Sure, yeah. Well, yeah, so at Tactalyse, we're really passionate about the US. Like we got a lot of US coaches now, and whenever I speak to them, they see this as the gap in what is missing in American football. Sorry, in American soccer. Um, so yeah, if anyone's listening to this that is working with a club or is a coach or is an analyst or is a player, whatever, is to look up Tactalyze and open yourself to this new way of thinking about football. We offer lots of different things. We have a player community that people can join for free, and we give analysis videos. So I'll connect that. We've got a coaches community again for free. So if you're a coach and you wanna learn the game in a different way, come join that. That's free. And then we do these sessions with the younger players, these sort of more small, close knit curriculum type things. But that's when they really get to learn what is football, how can I improve at these certain details, etc. And if there's a pro footballer listening, then yeah, come talk to me. I'm your guy. I'm the MLS man. I'm working with some other MLS players as well, but Houston is my team, and it will be. But yeah, I just hope more and more people become open to trying these different things, and it takes people that are to change the American game for the better. So yeah, take that step. Come and say hello.
I agree. I agree. Thinking outside the box is definitely, and it's the little details. Like you said, it's a puzzle game. It's the little details that make the game the game. And it's the little mistakes they are the big mistakes in overall aspect of the game. So,
Exactly.
shaping all those things and seeing yourself and knowing why and sharing with somebody. I think those are gracious things that you guys are doing that is definitely benefiting the greater quality of the game altogether.
Mhm.
But all right, well, it was definitely a pleasure. I will plug all the links and everything, everything will be there. So they will find everything, where to go, how to reach you, and what to check it out. I find it interesting, even that free session that you're saying. I think that if for someone that is skeptical, maybe give it a shot. I'm sure they will enjoy it.
Exactly. There's
Because
nothing to lose, everything to gain.
the more eyes, the better on a player. That's my
Exactly.
that's
Oh
my.
yeah, yeah, sure. No, yeah. Thank you very much for your time, and yeah, keep up the great work, man.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. You too. Thank you.